My wife recently found out that I was having an affair with my friend's wife, and to be honest, it's been a real wake-up call for me. It's complicated, messy, and I'm not proud of it. But I suppose that's why I'm writing this now. I need to get it off my chest and explain how all of this happened, even though I know there's no real excuse for my actions. Let me start from the beginning. It was about 5 years ago, right after my divorce. I had just come out of a rough patch, trying to adjust to life on my own. I was feeling pretty low, and the last thing I expected was to meet someone new, let alone someone who would completely throw me off course. But that's exactly what happened. I was at a concert one evening, just trying to enjoy myself. I'm not the type of guy who goes out to bars and clubs anymore, especially after my divorce, but I thought a concert would be a good way to clear my head. That's where I met her. She was younger than me, but we clicked right away. She had this energy about her that just drew me in. We started talking, and it felt easy, like we had known each other for years. After the show ended, she and I decided to head to a bar with me and my friends. It was a fun night. We laughed, had a few drinks, and just hung out. The chemistry was undeniable, but I wasn't looking for anything serious at the time. I was still trying to get my bearings after my marriage ended, and I wasn't in the right headspace to dive into a relationship. But she was fun to be around, and it felt good to be around someone who wasn't bogged down by the same life stressors I was dealing with. We exchanged numbers, and that was about it for the night. I didn't think much of it, just another night out, another fun conversation with someone new. Back then, I wasn't really into social media. I only used Facebook to keep up with my kids' school activities, but other than that, I didn't bother with it much. So, she and I didn't connect on any of the usual platforms. It was just texting back and forth. At first, the texts were pretty casual, nothing out of the ordinary. A little playful, a little flirtatious, but nothing serious. There were no indications that she wanted anything more than a friendly conversation. I didn't think much of it. We talked about all sorts of things: music, books, movies. There was a lightness to the conversations, and I found myself looking forward to them, even though I wasn't expecting anything to come out of it. It turned out that she lived just about 20 minutes away from me. I didn't realize that at first, and honestly, we didn't really talk about meeting up. I had my life, she had hers, and we were just enjoying chatting with no real expectations. We never made plans to meet, and I wasn't pushing it. A couple of weeks went by, and as luck would have it, we discovered that we were both going to the same concert again. This time, it was in a different city, and it happened to fall on a weekend when my friends and I were planning a guy's trip. She was going with her friends, and it seemed like it could be a fun coincidence. So, we agreed to meet up at the concert. I remember when we met up before the show. Her group of friends was with her, and they were all younger than me. I was the only single one in my group of friends, and we were all out to have a good time. It was one of those weekends where you just let loose, drink too much, and don't think about anything too seriously. As we started bar hopping, we had a great time. Her friends were energetic, fun, and full of life. It was refreshing, and I honestly enjoyed the night. But then, something caught my eye. As we were chatting and getting to know each other better, I couldn't help but notice that none of these girls were wearing wedding rings. Now, I don't know what that should have told me at the time, but looking back, it seems pretty obvious now. I wasn't the only one in my group of friends who noticed it. We all remarked on it, but no one really said anything out loud. We just kept the night going, and everyone had a few more drinks. The whole situation felt like it was just a little too casual, but I didn't think much of it at first. It's funny how in hindsight, things that seemed harmless at the time now look so much more complicated. I didn't think I was crossing any lines, but looking back, it's clear that I was. I didn't stop and think about the consequences of my actions. I didn't think about the impact it would have later on. I just let things play out, enjoying the attention and the excitement of something new and unexpected. But things didn't stay simple. And looking back, I can see how all of it set the stage for the disaster that would come later. It started with texting, then it turned into meeting up again, and eventually, it spiraled into something much more serious. At the time, I wasn't thinking about how it would affect the people around me. I wasn't thinking about the fact that she was married, or the fact that I was stepping into a situation that could destroy everything. I was caught up in the moment, in the rush of something new and exciting. But it was only the beginning. So, we all assumed they were probably not married. They were younger than us, and none of the girls seemed to show any interest in anything more than just being friends. Honestly, I didn't think much of it at the time. I wasn't looking for a relationship. How would you feel if your partner hid their affair for months or even years? Write in the comments. Anyway. So if they were all just out for a good time, I was fine with that. After hitting up a couple of bars, we finally made our way to the concert. Her group of friends had 4 tickets, while my friends and I had seats up higher. It seemed like that was going to be the end of our interaction for the night. We all enjoyed the concert, each in our own space, and I didn't think much more about it. But then, after the concert, my friends and I went to another bar. We had a good time, just kicking back and enjoying ourselves, and then we eventually headed back to our hotel. As soon as I got into my room, my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. She asked if I wanted to come out for more drinks with her, and the place she was at was near my hotel. At the time, it didn't take much to convince me. I agreed and headed back out. I figured it would be her and her friends again, but when I arrived, it was just her. No group. It was just the two of us, and it didn't take long for the situation to escalate. I don't even think I finished my drink before we were heading back to my hotel. And honestly, the whole night was kind of a blur, but it was fun. It felt spontaneous and a little reckless, and that made it exciting. When we got back to my room, I remember feeling like the night had taken a turn, but in a way, it was just what I needed. A break from everything, no strings attached. We didn't talk much about it, but I knew what it was, just a casual thing, no expectations. In the days that followed, things kept progressing, but it stayed relatively low-key. She started coming over to my house during the day. I have a flexible job, so I work from home a lot. She traveled around for her own job, which gave her the freedom to come by while my kids were at school. It was easy. She'd come over after the kids left and would leave before they got back. Some days, she was there almost the whole time they were at school, and even when it wasn't my time with the kids, she'd still be there. But never at night, never on weekends. It was just a casual arrangement, friends with benefits, simple as that. And honestly, it worked for me. My kids were my priority, and I was involved in their lives, even coaching 2 of their teams. This wasn't interfering with my time with them or my friends. I liked having my own space, and this arrangement allowed me to keep everything balanced. I wasn't looking for anything serious, and I definitely wasn't interested in starting a relationship with someone that young who might eventually want a family of their own. I'd made my decision about kids already, and I wasn't interested in going down that road again. I was upfront with her about how I felt. I told her I wasn't looking for a long-term relationship, and she was completely fine with it. She told me she wasn't looking for one either. It seemed like we were both on the same page, and that suited me just fine. Everything was easy, uncomplicated. It was just about us meeting during the day, having fun, and then going on with our lives. No drama, no commitment. It was exactly what I needed at that time. This arrangement went on for almost a year. It was casual, uncomplicated, and I was okay with that. But eventually, I met someone new, my now wife. Things with her moved quickly, and I knew I had to end things with a woman I had been seeing casually. It wasn't a dramatic breakup. I told her it was time to move on, and she was completely fine with that. We agreed that we would no longer text each other, and that was that. No hard feelings, no drama. I moved forward with my life, and about a year later, I married my wife. Fast forward to 2 years ago, and I found myself running into this woman again. It happened at a neighborhood gathering. My wife and I were introduced to her and her husband by a friend of mine. They had just bought the house right next door to him, so it was a friendly, easygoing introduction. When we first saw each other, there was no awkwardness at all. It was as if nothing had changed, like it was all just water under the bridge. We smiled, exchanged pleasantries, and said hello. It didn't feel strange or uncomfortable, which was a relief. When we got home that night, I mentioned to my wife that I had known her before, and I explained the nature of our past relationship. My wife is very understanding, and she took it well. We both accept that we've had past relationships before we met each other. It wasn't a big deal to either of us. Her husband, as it turned out, was a pretty cool guy too. He fit right in with my group of friends, and before long, he was hanging out with us on a regular basis. We all became pretty close. This year, he even joined one of my fantasy football leagues. Things were going well, and I didn't think much of it. Then one day, he sent me a friend request on Facebook, and of course I accepted. After I did, I noticed he friended my wife too. I didn't think anything of it at first. We all were getting along well, and I figured it was just part of being friendly. But then, a little while later, my wife came to me with a question. She had taken a look at his Facebook profile and asked me, "How long ago were you two just friends with benefits?" I froze for a second, trying to gather my thoughts. She had seen that he and his wife had been married for 8 years. I quickly did the math in my head. It had been 5 years since I had been involved with his wife. I didn't know what to say at first. My wife wasn't angry or upset, but I could tell she was processing the information. It wasn't a secret that I had a past, but now it was out in the open. There were no accusations, no harsh words, but I could feel the weight of it all. She showed me a recent post on his profile where he had written about their 8 years of marriage, and I couldn't help but feel the pressure of everything I'd done. I had never expected things to come back around like this, especially not after so much time had passed. But here we were, and the truth was out.